So, good morning, good morning, good morning, Facebook. Good morning to the Jenisys Solutions community. And good morning to my guest friend and colleague, Lois Garner from As We Go. And Lois is going to be talking to us today about, well, she's from the seizure community, and she has a lot of information to give us in terms of possibilities and the probabilities of having a diagnosis of seizures and what will happen, what can happen when you don't take care of it. And she's going to explain to us a little bit more about that from her community and from her experience, and kind of educate us on that whole phenomenon. So welcome, Lois, my friend, my colleague, my fellow entrepreneur, and fellow person who's going through some medical stuff like myself. So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right. And so just to kind of give you a little bit of background, I'm Jenisys Walters, of course, with Jenisys Solutions, type 2 diabetes. I am a long-term type 2 diabetic who's overcome some medical challenges and now living a more fulfilled life and a more healthier life based on the fact that I made a choice to do just exactly that. So Lois, we wanted to kind of get a background. I usually like my folks to know who my guests are and to kind of give them a little bit of background story. And I was very intrigued when I first met you, and maybe you might want to tell me a little bit about that, but I don't know. But that you said that you grew up on a farm, and I'd like you to kind of give us a little background of your growing up and your history and what you got into and now where you are. I remember you said you modeled and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure they'd be really eager to know a little bit more about your life and your background.
Yeah, well, my dad was a wheat farmer. So I grew up around fields a lot, and all of my family had a garden. So my aunt had a garden, my grandma had a garden, and my mom had a garden. So I grew up eating produce from all of those gardens, and they all canned their own food. And so I learned early on what it was to work in the field and plant your own vegetables and weed your own gardens, and where food actually came from. So I had that kind of history. I didn't really love that because I had to weed the garden. But I did know what it was about, and so that was part of part of how I grew up.
Wow. So let me ask you, so when you were growing your own foods, did you really have to go to the grocery store to buy anything fresh, or did you just get regular other things from the grocery store? Because you grew everything, it sounds like. You've had so many gardens to choose from.
We went to the grocery store. We didn't have a massive production. We weren't like self-sufficient completely, but we would go and get meat. We didn't have our own cow or anything like that. But meat and eggs, and we didn't have chickens. So the things that you don't have in your backyard, we would get from the grocery store.
It's interesting because when you told me that you grew up on a farm, I immediately thought of you had animals on the farm. But now you're telling me that you didn't. You had more wheat. And that's something I wasn't aware of. I thought you had animals and you raised cows and chickens and all these different animals, but that you totally different kind of farmer, totally different kind of farm, right? So, but I kind of can resonate and relate to that because my dad knew a lot about agriculture as well. He's from the Caribbean, and in the Caribbean, when they were growing up, they would have animals and they grew their own food and, took care of the land. And my father was the oldest, and he took care of that while my younger aunts and uncles were going to school. He would take care of the land and the animals, and his brother, who was next to him, would also help with that. So I can kind of resonate in terms of living on the land or living off the land and being used to that. And I'm a city girl. I was not used to that. That was not something I did. And even when my father went to England and settled there, in our backyard, he had a little farm. I mean, he grew all our herbs that we cooked with. He grew potatoes, he grew tomatoes, he grew lettuce, he grew, I mean, pretty much everything he grew. Um, but he took care of it. I didn't know anything about how to take care of it except to go pick it when it was ready. And other than
Yeah.
that, he would take care of everything. So yeah, so that's interesting. So growing up on a farm, but then where did you go from there? When you grew up on a farm, I mean, did you always have healthy eating practices then or no?
No, and we actually moved to town when I was fairly young. Uh, we and I lived a lot of my life in town. So my dad still farmed, and he also worked running driving a dairy truck.
Oh,
Um, and so he would bring home ice cream, and because he got that for free, we ate a lot of ice cream, and
mm,
it was super fun, but it wasn't also very healthy.
mm,
um, so I ended up eating a lot of dairy, sugar, a lot of sugar. Um, and so, yeah, we had some practices that probably weren't most healthy. Um,
gotcha. But you know when they say that your parents made you eat certain things as growing up as a kid, and then as an adult you don't like it. Do you like ice cream still, or do you not like it anymore?
I, s- I do, but I don't eat it that often. And there are certain kinds that just don't appeal to me. So it's not as attractive as certain other desserts. That's for
Gotcha.
sure.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. So then tell us a little bit about your diagnosis, because we're here to talk about seizures and talk about where you came from and how that developed in your life and what happened when you had that diagnosis and how did your life change given that diagnosis. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And maybe
You
how
know,
food plays into that too.
yeah, um, I don't actually remember the actual diagnosis a lot, um, but it has affected me quite profoundly. Um, I remember asking why a lot. Um, it was a stunning experience to go from having nothing wrong with you in your mind to all of a sudden having this um, sickness is what I call it now. Um, I don't like to call it a condition because a condition is forever. It's kind of a, a term that implies um, foreverness, um, and I just started asking a lot of questions, like what's the purpose? Why me? How can someone have this um, forever? And the layers of questions kept coming, and you kind of keep asking them until they're answered, and a lot of them don't have answers. And so I just started um, this whirlwind of emotional kind of turmoil.
Gotcha. So because you didn't have the answers that you were looking for, that kind of frustrated you, I would assume, and made you feel like, well, you don't know why you're having this happen to you. You're not really knowing the origin or the reason, and then it's something that's going to happen for the rest of your life. So how did that make you feel? Let's talk about the emotions surrounding that, because a lot of the times when we are diagnosed with something, one of the first things that people have to come to grips with is that something they have to now manage and manage their lives a different way. And they're not happy about that because they're used to living their life a certain way. But now this thing is now getting in the way of bring that, or kind of puts a damper on things. And so how do they manage it? How do they then incorporate that into their new life and their new diagnosis and their new, dealing with an illness? So let's talk
Yeah,
about that, because emotions are very, very strongly connected when you have a diagnosis. So tell me about how that made you feel.
yeah, they're powerful, and you can't fake it, you know. People will tell you how to feel, um, try and make you feel a certain way, or um, maybe tell you that it's not supposed to be this way, or um, spiritualize it, or um, ignore it.
Yeah.
But I think it's meant to be acknowledged. The emotions are meant to be looked at, and even when the questions aren't able to be answered, sometimes you have to come back to them and just check in with yourself and make sure you haven't missed something, um, and understand your story through a different lens. And you're going to grow and you're going to change. And the way you understand your story now is not the way you're going to understand it in a year, or the next year, or the next year. And the questions that I asked when I started the whole journey are not the questions that I'm asking now. And those shifted as I grew older, and I've come to grips with a lot of things. And I've really become a great analyst of my own life. Um, I look at pain in a whole different way. And I've learned to look at life in a different way. And I think it's because I've had to think about all of those things.
So can you explain to us what it's like to experience a seizure, maybe, possibly, so that people can kind of get an understanding? I mean, we've heard of seizures, we've probably seen people having a seizure. What actually happens? What does the body go through when you are experiencing a seizure? Is it something that you don't remember what's going on? You just told about it after the fact, or you're actually in it and you're actually watching it go by as you're going through it?
It's funny. Inside, I'm laughing out loud. Everybody, seizures are not the same for everyone. So, and that's one of the things that makes it the hardest one of the hardest diagnoses or diagnoses. My diagnosis is going to be different than somebody else who has epilepsy. But for me, a seizure is not something I feel until it's over. So I don't know it's happening, which is a blessing. I don't feel anything. I don't know anything's happening. And it's like I'm completely gone. And I wake up and I'm in a lot of pain. Um, I have I have I have a headache. I need to go to the bathroom. I have nausea. And if my body has come into contact with any objects because of how I have moved during that time, I may have a lot of bruising, and then those parts of my body will be in a lot of pain as well.
Wow. So that is, oh my gosh, that's just something that I've never really kind of thought about, but I'm sure that people that are listening, um, that's an interesting way to kind of explain it for somebody who doesn't know or understand how seizures actually work. And the fact that you're not even really conscious of to what's going on, and that you could actually really hurt yourself, um, is very sobering. Very, very sobering. So let me ask you this. Have you found that diet helps with that, or medications help with that, or either or both? Or tell us a little bit about how food really plays into your condition.
Yeah, that's been a hard process. We've done a number of things with diet, but I didn't even think about diet until way later in life. I take medications. I've taken them for a long time, and in my case, I took a medication for about 30 years, and my body became resistant to it. And that's what happens, or can happen, when you're on medications, is that your body starts to resist them, and then you have to try a new one.
Wow.
And they're actually made to keep your body from doing something that it's blocking a process. It's blocking a natural process. So it's keeping your brain from working the way it's meant to, but it's also keeping your brain from doing something that's causing harm. So it's kind of a catch-22. You want to stop the seizure, but your brain's not working in the way that it's meant to. And that's always been a struggle for me, because I want my brain to be fully there, completely
Right.
working the way it should.
Right.
But I don't want to have a seizure, and I want my body to work the way it should, and I don't want to die, and I want my kids to have their mom doing what I'm supposed to do, and my family probably pays the price even more than I do, and I think that's one of the hardest.
Because they have to
Parts.
experience it. Yeah, they have to experience that. So then how do you manage it now? How has the way you've managed your seizures changed over time?
It has.
You want to tell us a little about that?
I have started eating less in the morning. I eat breakfast later, and that seems to be helping me. I did CBD oil for a while, and then I've been able to not do that as much. I don't have to do that as much because of some other supplements that I've been taking. It's a process of trial and error. And you really just have to be your own advocate and learn what works for you. And, I remember watching Lorenzo's Oil. I don't know if anybody's seen that, when I was really young. And in that movie, the parents in that movie are researching to help their son. And I remember thinking, I don't ever want to do that, because it seemed like such a process to research for your health. And 10 years later, that's the process that I started.
Wow.
To research for my own health. And it is work, but if you don't do it, who's going to do that for you?
Yeah.
It's a really important thing to be your own advocate.
It's interesting you say that, because my father always used to say that you have choices, and that I think he, on so many different levels, that is true for pretty much everything. You have choices in how you deal with your illness. You have choices in how you don't deal with it. You have choices in how you manage it. You have choices. And so finding what works for you and what best works for you is going to be key in that sense. So in coming to terms with your illness, have you found that you are more in control right now than you were?
Yes. And no.
Okay.
Control is an illusion, really. I have come to that knowledge. We like to think we're in control.
Yeah.
So I know I'm not in control. Um, I could drop at any time, and I'm aware of that. But I'm also aware of the fact that I have to live my life,
Yeah.
and it gives me hope to know that um, I'm taken care of,
Yeah.
completely and utterly taken care of.
Yeah.
And God has given me people around me that love me. And um, when it's my time, I know that um, it's my time,
Yeah.
and I'm not worried.
That's really significant that you've kind of accepted that that kind of prognosis for yourself. That's very, very big and very, very huge, because a lot of people dread that and don't want to face that, or don't want to think about it, or don't even want to talk about it. But you kind of pretty much figured, well, if that's your lot, that's your lot, and have come to terms with that, which is pretty profound, I think. So what I'd like to know is, in terms of parallels between diabetes and epilepsy, you were telling me when we first met about some parallels that you found and some things that were similar. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you found out about the parallels between diabetes and epilepsy?
Um, well, I think they're both really emotional diagnoses.
Yeah.
I think anytime you get a diagnosis of any kind, it's hard.
Yeah.
Um, and you're going to question, and you're going to have a hard time walking through it. But um, people who have diabetes, they have seizures, some of them.
Yep.
So there are some significant uh, parallels in that. But even just um, the fact that um, there is a need to pay attention to diet and exercise, and um, pay attention and acknowledge what it is that you want for yourself, and change the path of your feet, you know.
Yeah.
um
You've talked
yeah
to us about you've talked to us about watching what you eat, or being mindful of what you eat, and also movement and exercise. What typically do you recommend, or what do you do for yourself to help in those areas? What do you typically find is better for you food wise? What do you do for movement and for exercise, if anything? Tell us what you incorporate into your life now.
I really love the elliptical, um just because I can stay on it and do things at the same time.
Mhm.
uh and I can look out my window and kind of just enjoy the world. But um if I want a quick 10-minute kind of get in and out, there's there's this thing called HIT, where you just do 10 minutes of high impact training.
Wow.
And that's actually really effective um, for a lot of different things. But if you can do that, you're burning fat. Helping your body to when you sweat, that's good for um, all of the processes in your body. And
Gotcha.
I really need to do that for my condition. Um, and it's on the high list, on the list of things to do daily. So
So
I
you
don't
do that
always
every
get it
day.
done, but it's a priority.
So it's one of those things that is a priority for you. In terms
Mhm.
of your food, though, what do you typically eat then? What's healthy for you, or what's better for you in terms of what you have?
Vegetables are good, but
Okay.
good fats are really important.
Okay.
Coconut oil, almonds, anytime you can get a good fat in you, that's really important for brain health.
Okay.
I think we negate the importance of good fat a lot. Yeah, that's a really key thing.
I didn't associate fats with brain food, but I guess now I know. So if you can get good healthy fats into your body, that's good for your brain. Um, that's really good to know. So let's talk about some of the things that you're using right now to help with your illness.
Some of the things that I'm using.
Well, do you want to talk about how cooking happens at your home first, and then we can talk about, you know, we can talk about who does the cooking at your house. Does your husband do it? Does Grant do it? Do you do it? You do.
I do the cooking.
You do the cooking.
Yeah, I do the cooking. I do the cooking, and I'm not a chef. We it's a funny thing to I do. If you can read, you can cook.
Okay, gotcha.
I tell him that all the time. I'm like, you can read just as well as I can.
Oh, he chooses not to cook. Oh, now I'm getting
So
there.
we have there's all these recipes online, and I try to find fun ones and make it fun for myself, but yeah, if anybody has any exciting new recipes they'd like to send my way, I'm always open to new things.
Well, tell us
We
what
do
you
a lot of
like. What do you like?
we do a lot of chicken. Right now I really like marinades. So, and cilantro is fun for me. Grant doesn't like it, but I'm into this cilantro marinade thing that's happening a lot at our house.
So he's forced to eat it.
He doesn't mind it because it doesn't show up in actual cilantro form, but it does make us a fun flavor.
Yeah, I like cilantro.
Yeah.
So what do you do for balance? Because they say with everything you have to find balance in your life. You can manage your illness, but also you have to have fun. You also have to live. And you were talking a little bit about that at the beginning, about being able to live your life in spite of. So possibilities for you, what are those in terms of your goals, in terms of your entrepreneurship? What are your goals and how does that play into everything else?
I think creating moments where I have less to do, you know. Lately I've been trying to plan out my day where there's space for three things, where I have a list of three things. Like I'm going to do this, this, and this. I know I'm going to write. I know I'm going to read a chapter in a book, and I know I'm going to do the laundry. I have a set list of things to accomplish. We tend to get really packed in our days with a lot of things to do, and then our brains even can't take it. And for people with seizure disorders, that can be hard.
Yeah.
I take naps, and I take less now, but the energy level is a lot lower. for someone that has seizures. So just cutting out things that maybe normally you would pack in a day.
Gotcha. So I would like to talk a little bit more about your writing, because you're a writer. In fact, you're a fantastic writer. I've seen some of your stuff. And I would like my audience to know a little bit about your writing and how that plays into your life. And we didn't even talk about your modeling days and how you discovered back then that you were a writer, or at least you decided then that you wanted to pursue your writing. So let's touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I I walked into my what do they call it? My agent's office,
Yeah.
and they said, "We're letting you go. Can we offer you these other positions? Like, what else would you like to do within this industry?" And I just looked at them and I said, "No, I want to be a writer." It was like in that moment, I knew that I didn't want to do any of those things. And it was such a moment for me, because it was almost like I was saying it automatically. And we went from there to Colorado and lived there for a little bit, and we lost our son there. And that's when I really started writing. It was more of a healing process for me, and it started coming back, because for a long time I hadn't written anything, because in college, my professors had been telling me that I could not be a writer. I didn't write well, and there was just a lot of negativity toward my writing, because the writing in school was very different, a very artsy crowd. There was a lot of pressure to do it a certain way, and that was not my way. And I was also having seizures, and in that space, struggling to write the things that I needed to write. I did my research paper in college 6 times.
Wow.
And it was after when I was doing that research 10 years later, that I realized how smart I actually was, because I had graduated 9th in my class, strung out on meds.
How about that?
And so if you have seizures or you're diagnosed with all these conditions, you're fighting hard to do the things that everyone else is doing on drugs, with no energy,
Yeah.
and do it just as good or better. And you're a champion.
Well, you proved that. I mean, you came out on top in spite of all the things that you were going through and the challenges that you were going through with the seizures, with, discovering that you hadn't written, but you wanted to be a writer, and that was what your true calling was. And then to deal with all the negativity on top of that, plus being in school, a student. I mean, you had a lot of things to contend with. And then losing your son. Could you tell us how old he was when you lost him?
We lost him at birth. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you had all of that to deal with, a new mom, and just, losing a child. That's a lot. That's a lot. But guess what? They always say that cream rises to the top, right? So you rose to the top, and in spite of everything that you had to contend with, you came out on top. Good for you. That's awesome. All right. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, you talked about exercise, you talked about what you do. I would like to talk about what you do in terms of some of the things that are helping you. I think you mentioned some supplements. I think that would be a good time to kind of, talk to folks about what you use or some of the things that you found that help you.
Yeah. Right now I love anything that gives me energy and helps headaches, and I use this gel, which is amazing, and I just put it on the back of my neck anytime I have a headache, and also, my forehead, and I can put it on my feet when I need to sleep better. And it's great for putting on bruises, because when you crash into things and you have bruising and all of those kind of things, it's very helpful to have something to quickly come out of the bruising. So
Yeah.
I do use that. So if anybody is interested in knowing more about that, you can get a hold of more information about that. support@aswego.com.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to
Tell
share
them
more
how they
about that.
can get in touch with you. Give them some more information about how they get in touch with you and some of the things that you wish you knew, and just give them some more.
Yeah, I have
contact
a sheet of 10 things I wish I'd known under seizure awareness on Pinterest. When I was going through all of my, during the time that I was just learning about what seizures were, and just starting, there were things that I wish I had known. For example, as a woman, to know that birth control exacerbates seizures. I had no idea that that was the thing.
Really?
So I took birth control, and that is what launched me into a long bout with seizures that set me on a course towards a coma. So, there are real things that, if you just knew beforehand, it would be so beneficial, and it would just take a minute for someone to tell you. And so I have you can go to Pinterest, 10 things I wish I'd known under seizure awareness, and we'll put those links. Jenisys is going to put them on her page.
Yeah, in the comments.
Me at support@aswego.com, and I think she's going to have a thing for you as well.
Yeah. So I will actually get those things ready for you, and you'll be able to have those in the comments below. But I'd like for you to be able to, well, first of all, I want to thank you, Lois, for coming on today and talking about epilepsy and seizures and how that plays into your life then and now, and how you've managed that and what you can do to actually manage it better, and some of the supplements that you utilize. And maybe anyone that's interested in kind of finding out more about those supplements, of course, you can get a hold of Lois As We Go, and at support support as is it at support or support
it's
as we go?
Yeah, support@aswego.com.
support@aswego.com. So you can definitely reach her there, but I will definitely be putting those links in their comments for you, But I'd like any of you that are listening today to be able to kind of give us your comments and just kind of talk about anyone that's been experiencing any kind of seizures, or anyone that is diabetic and feels that they would like to kind of get more information, to just let us know. You can contact either one of us and get more information, and just drop us a line or give us a comment below. And of course, reach out to Lois, and then reach out to myself. And of course, you are welcome to stop by the group anytime, Jenisys Solutions Type 2 Diabetes. And it's spelled Jenisys, Jenisys Solutions Type 2 Diabetes. And we'll be glad to see you drop by anytime. So again, thank you, Lois, for stopping by. It was a very, very interesting conversation about that condition of epilepsy and seizures, and what the seizure community actually experiences, and how it's different for everybody. Everybody experiences it differently. But how you've actually managed to kind of overcome major challenges with that, the loss of a child, and, you know, moving from one career into another, and then discovering your purpose and going after that. It's just a lot that you were dealing with, and then trying to get through school, and even with the negativity, rising above all of that, and just basically going for your purpose and going for your dream and your goal. So I commend you on that. We need to take a page from your book. That's all I can say to that. So again, thank you for being here, everyone. And thank you, Facebook. Thank you again, Lois Garner from As We Go. And we will be meeting again another time. We're going to probably do a follow-up with you to see how you're doing and how your writing is going, because I know that you're supposed to be working on this book, and then you can come back and tell us all about the book before you launch it.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.